Good evening and welcome to Talking Point. I'm your host, Dr. Corey Nimright, coming to you live from the studios of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation in Accra. We come to you live this and every Sunday with issues of national concern and engage you in discussions for informed decision making. We are streaming live on GBC Ghana Online, on Facebook at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and as always, we welcome those listening to us on Unique 95.7. Talking Point is brought to you tonight in partnership with ATL, who are sponsoring my outfit. You can purchase ATL fabric from their shop at number 40 Kwame Nkrumah Avenue, opposite the Swansea Shopping Arcade in Accra, or online at atlfabrics.com. The fabric from ATL was custom made by Rowena Creations. Visit Rowena Creations at www.rowenacreationsgh.com or at their showroom located near the Sakumono traffic light on the Spintex Road. Last week, the President of the Republic's Farmers' Day message was full of assurances to Ghanaians. Assurances that agriculture will remain a top priority of his government. Assurances that the Planting for Food and Jobs program had opened opportunities for agricultural exports. And assurances that the investment of the government in and support to the agricultural sector had translated into Ghana's resilience in the face of threats to destabilize our food systems. Tonight, our panelists will discuss the state of agriculture in Ghana and how the President's assurances translate into tangible results in the agriculture sector. Stay with us. We encourage you to send your messages during the show to our WhatsApp number 055-744-6429. With me for tonight's discussion in the studio, I have a gentleman with a lot of titles, Mr. Abraham Dwuma Odoom. He's a farmer. He's a former Deputy Minister for Local Government. He's a former MP for Trufu. He's a former DCE and a consultant. Welcome, and I hope this won't be the last time you join us here at Talking Point. And on the phone, we will have Mr. Anthony Morrison. He's the CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. So let me start with you, Mr. Odoom. We just celebrated Farmers' Day, and a lot of farmers were celebrating for the good work that they're doing. But I wanted to juxtapose that in the situation all of us in the economic hardship, and you really find people now planting in their backyards and doing little things. So I just wanted to ask you what your take was on how we need to look at farmers, the everyday Ghanaian, how we need to look at farming and how that can help us in our everyday lives. I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you for having me tonight. And let me join you to say ayiko to our farmers who at least make sure that we eat our breakfast, lunch, and supper. You can once in a while go to a doctor or a lawyer, but every day you have the farmer servicing you. So we need to pay our homage to them.
Yes, so we are grateful to their service. We are so grateful to them. Yes, we certainly are.
And then, like you said, you are talking about what we used to have in Ghana during a champion style, backyard garden, Operation Feed Yourself. I'm sure this is what you're trying to.
Yeah, but I mean, practically everybody is even doing it without a slogan.
Yes,
You know, it's become a very natural thing that we're all engaging in.
When the COVID came, it was, for me, a lesson for all of us that we cannot continue to depend on importation of what we eat from outside. Because you agree with me, those moments that no ship was moving, no plane was moving, if you have to wait for food to come, where would it come from? Therefore, I've always said that the best way to handle food security is to grow your own food. And especially those of us who have locations where we can do our own backyard garden, at least your vegetables, those little things. I do it. I remember when I was in Takrady, where I used to be, my wife would not go home, market to buy plantain, nor contumely, nor garden egg. everything was
These are
homegrown.
things we could grow in the house.
And we have control over it. And at the end of the day, even people came from the village to pick this plantain suckers from our place.
Wow.
So we were eating what we call fresh and
Mm.
organic food. No chemical additive or fertilizer. So my stake is that, at least from what the president said, he's trying to remind us that we need to take what we eat very seriously. And as a country, putting agriculture as our priority, I think, is a step in the right direction.
Okay, so let's go back to the president's message. The theme for this year's celebration was accelerating agriculture development through value addition. And I wanted to focus on the value addition part of the equation. What have we done as a country in that area, and what else could we be doing, and what more could we be doing to really boost the value addition part of agriculture?
I'm afraid we haven't done much. When we are importing everything, including toothpick, then, Doc, how do we talk about value addition? Yeah, because at the end of the day, our import bill for what we eat is so phenomenal. It's so huge. I mean, we virtually importing about 80% of what we eat. So virtually we aren't doing much about value addition. But nevertheless, there are some areas that people are trying to add value. Say the rice sector, then the maize sector. And look at poultry. It's virtually at a collapse level. So talking about value addition now, I'm very skeptical. I don't think we have done so much. But I trust that the government 1D, 1F, coupled with the planting for food, can be able to bring us up to meet that aspiration as we're talking about.
What about mechanized farming?
Mechanized farming, over there too, we haven't done much.
Okay.
We haven't done much because, Doc, you see, I believe in something like you imagine something. I believe the 4 steps of creation. You imagine something, you design it, you execute, and then you create. For umpteen years, the imagination has been there, but the designing and the execution, we have been always not done it the best way. You see, if you design and then you execute, then you can create. But you talk about something and you don't put any design and you don't put any execution plan, definitely nothing can happen. And I have been in government before. I've been in public service before. There's so much talking, but little is being done. Let's even take the example of the regulatory bodies. The regulatory bodies, are they executing what they're supposed to execute in terms of regulating the industry? Yes. Currently, I'm on a platform with some young men, very innovative. Amazing, the kind of thing, Doc, they have put on my platform. So I am schooling them. What I told them was that the challenge of Ghana now, I look at it too, sanitation and agriculture. So they should focus their attention in the area of getting machinery for our smallholders. Madam, you go to India, they don't have, they have peasant farming. They aggregate them. And peasant farmers cannot necessarily go in for combine harvest, a huge one. But at least miniature ones, which I am talking to these inventors, there are a lot of them, including some captains and what have you. We are saying that let us focus on agriculture, especially harvesting and post-harvesting, so that we'll be able to handle the issues, the challenges over there. For me, challenges virtually create opportunities. And this is what we are trying to do, so that at the end of the day, we'll be able to handle the mechanization aspect. Because huge mechanized, these peasant farmers cannot afford them.
Okay. Right. Mr. Morrison, thank you for joining us. Mr. Morrison, are you with us?
Abraham.
Yes. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Odoom and I have been talking about, mechanized farming. We've been talking about how all of us can get involved in farming during these times. But I wanted to ask you specifically how you reviewed the budget that was read last week, and when it mentioned that we're going to focus on locally produced foodstuffs. Did you consider that welcome news?
Well, I don't think the budget was that explicit as you stated, but to point it out right, there were some components in the budget. For instance, the economic enclave project that seeks to focus on the same thing that the Planting for Food and Jobs is doing. And for me, the most surprising thing is that either it's a duplication or it's some kind of confirmation that the Planting for Food and Jobs has not been working effectively. But that notwithstanding, I think that next season, a lot of things is going to be on us as a country. Consumers, producers, farmers, and the challenges are going to be enormous. If you look at the budget, there was some $400 budget allocation for the agriculture insurance, for instance. If you convert that, that is about 6 billion cedis. Meanwhile, 1.2 billion was allocated for only food production. So for me, it's about a country setting its priorities right. Which agriculture insurance is key, but there are certain fundamentals that ought to be available. Otherwise, the exposures that each of these insurance companies are going to take will be too much. Now, if you take a look at the budget in its entirety, yes, I was happy with the three-crop budget, where government has budgeted to support a lot of the cash crops. It's an area that we need to look at as a country, where our agro-industry development and export strategy can serve us. But as a country as well, we need to begin to work to separate food security from agribusiness. We have over 80% of our smallholder farmers who are producing just about 70% of the food we eat. However, the food we export are all produced by commercial farms. So we need to draw the paradigm shift and design a strategy or a policy, to put it, that actually will incorporate aggressively commercial to export and value addition, while also aggressively supporting food security. Because if you look at our national food balance sheet, it's just 2%. And going into next production season, we are almost going to next production season with a negative, because there is no buffer stock available. Bank of Ghana has placed a kind of ban on export support. Meanwhile, productivity in the country has also been reduced. So we're going to have prices of rice shooting up, prices of maize shooting up. And just a few days ago, that was on Thursday, Ministry of Food and Agriculture has placed a second and another ban on the export of grains and cereals from the country. So that should tell you the kind of situation we have. And I'm happy we're discussing the state of the agriculture. First, I will appreciate if government can pay the seed suppliers, the local indigenous seed producers. Government owes them well in over 150 million cedis. The government can clear that debt. while they clear the debt of the fertilizer suppliers, then we can be sure going into next season that we are going to have the critical input available for farmers. If you quite remember, we were short of fertilizers in the major season of this year. And we don't want that to happen in the major season because we are now in a global food recession. And we expect government to be putting money where the people are. Because if you take a statement that was made by Norbert Bullock, that was the 1970 Nobel Food Prize winner. He said, you cannot build a peaceful world on an empty stomach and a human misery. So that should tell you food is very critical to the security of this country. Food is very critical to the human resource development of this country. And food is critical for us to continue to grow this country to where we all want it to be.
Okay,
so for me, that will be my initial statement. But if I'm to go on, I think that on the whole, there were certain things we were expecting from this budget.
Well, let me specifically ask probably something about the statement that was made in the budget about boosting local productive capacity. And it talked about supporting the aggressive production of strategic substitutes, including the list that the president mentioned in one of his prior address, and also introducing policies for the protection and incubation of newly formed industries for local consumption and also exports. What are your thoughts on those two things?
Okay, so, well, the export promotion, I think, was key and it featured prominently in the budget, where government was looking at the cocoa derivatives and also the cassava value chain and the fruits and vegetables, which is very important. There is the other part of the development plan that is allocating 500 million cedis to promote certain economic enclaves. That is also key. Now, as I said earlier on, if you look at the budget itself as well, especially the areas of the regulation for grain exports, which I've stated earlier, we also look at the promotion of organic fertilizer. This is an area where we need to drive aggressively because it is the only area that we have a more competitive and a comparative advantages to develop a sector that is able to turn around on its own and not to depend on imports. Now, be as it may, there is also a major challenge as a country. How do we arrive at our data, agriculture sector data? How is data being used? How is data being managed? How is data being stored? For me, that is where we should be looking at because it seems as though over the years, our data has not really been a data that solves problems. There are data that helps us to design projects, but really does not provide the critical numbers. So you look at the public sector project implementation, it has not been overly successful compared to the private sector. So we need to work on the sector budget to make sure that we are able to solve the problem as they should. But that not also withstanding, I also want to add the fact that the 1.2 billion cedis allocated for agriculture is so meager. In fact, I was at a program last week where KPMG were reviewing the budget. And it was so sad to know that as a country where 32 million people are involved, Ghana only has access to 2% of our natural resources. So that tells you that the only sector we can control ourselves is agriculture. It's agriculture, what we eat. And we ought to begin to look at the Maputo and the Malabo Declaration of the African Union, which is which Ghana is a signatory. So we need to make incremental budget allocation. I was expecting that government understanding the scope and the challenges the industry is facing. We are importing well over $1.2 billion of rice. Poultry is well in $1.2 billion as well. 400 million of vegetables from Burkina Faso and If you add what is coming from Morocco, Kenya, South Africa, another 150 million. Fruit juice. Ghana is the biggest consumer of frozen chicken, frozen fish in Africa. That is another budget well over 1.3 billion. So if you look at 5 major food stuffs we eat in Ghana, which we import, it's well over 5 billion. Government is seeking how much from IMF? $3 billion. That to tell you that if government is investing more into agriculture, agriculture alone is capable of giving us enough money to run this economy. And you see, going forward, we need to focus on certain things because climate change is having an effect on us. This season, we are having challenges because climate change has played a major role in the rice sector. When rice farmers harvested, they lost a chance because they were not having dryers. Then also when they transplanted, they had flooding on their farms. I think government will need to look at it, the post-harvest areas, provide dryers and provide a critical support system. Because as we speak, just 6 months ago, we were buying 5 kg of rice at 45 cedis. Yesterday or 2 days at Kofodia, it was sold at 90 Ghana cedis. Even at the farmers where you expect prices should be cheaper. So that is the level of challenges we are going into as a country. 50 kg bag of maize is going for 180 to 240. So the challenges are enormous, and we shouldn't be in the position now be telling government what they should do. Government should know what is expected of it, because for instance, the biggest employer of the agriculture sector, which is the poultry value chain, is almost on its knees. Over 2,700 poultry farms have collapsed, and more than half of that number have downsized their production capacity by more than 60%. Okay. So we need to begin to work aggressively towards solving all these challenges.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. We're going to take a quick break. This is Talking Point. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talking Point. We're talking about the state of agriculture in Ghana. In the studio with me, I have Mr. Abraham Dwuma Odoom. He's a farmer, a former deputy minister, and the list goes on, but he's also a consultant. And on the phone, I have Mr. Anthony Morrison. He's the CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness in Ghana. So, Mr. Odoom, before I asked Mr. Morrison how welcome it was to him when he heard that the 2023 budget included measures that would stimulate and enhance locally produced items such as foodstuffs. But I wanted to go to an article that I read that you had said, which I thought was very interesting, that the school feeding is one that we need to revisit because we can use the school feeding program to re-engineer the local economy. So I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about your thoughts when it comes to that, because that's something that we can tangibly do something about.
Like you said, I remember when I was a DCA, 13 of my schools had 0%. So I was curious. I wanted to find out what the causes or the cause is. So I came to FAO and WHO, discuss the challenge with them, because I believe in research work. I'll be talking about Ghana and the way we handle our research. I'll talk about it later. So when I came, they said, okay, what we can do for you is to give you a consultant to go to your village, your district, and then do a survey for us to know what the issues are. Among the 13 points that they brought, the 2 of them, hunger, and then malnutrition. But I had worked at Cocoa Products Factory, Takoradi, so I knew the benefit of natural cocoa powder. So immediately, when the report was laid, I sought the permission of the Assembly to allow me to use part of the poverty alleviation to buy cocoa drink and give to the children throughout the whole district. And this is what we did. And Honorable Kojo Banridu of the blessed memory came and saw it, and he said, wow, this is wonderful. So you remember, you recall that in 2004, when he did his budget, there was 1 cup of cocoa for every student, every school child. That was the genesis. And then, talking with him, I told him was that, what I told him was, if I have the funding, which was coming through the poverty alleviation, what I was going to do was to set caterers in the district. And these caterers will never, ever buy anything outside the district. We are going to network the farmers, those doing pepper, those doing garden eggs, those doing contomere, those doing okra, those doing rice.
Locally produced.
Locally produced. So that they will be supplying these caterers. And the philosophy behind was this: if we teach the children our local food and they get used to it, when they grow, they would definitely be eating our own food. Meanwhile, we would also be supporting the farmers, because at the end of the day, farmers are complaining all the time that when they grow, they don't have nobody buying. So if we have at least that market availability for them, then definitely you can imagine that you are helping your local people. That was the original intent and purpose of school feeding from my perspective. So, like I said, we were using it to re-engineer the rural economy. And I think this is the way we should go. For me, if Ghana had to depend on outside country for sardines, pilchards, and what have you to feed our children, I think it's not the best way. We need to let them taste our local food. And when they grow, the Bible says that teach the child the way he should go, so that when he grows, he will not depart from it. If we teach them and they know that this is rice, this is our local food, contomere, that kind of thing, they grow up and they stay with it.
Mr. Morrison, you know, a lot has been said about locally produced rice. You know, so many radio stations have had all these campaigns, and in your estimation, what is preventing us from being able to produce the rice locally for the citizens of Ghana? Maybe he's not on. Maybe I can ask you that question, because and a very interesting question for you, because you've had some success with this in Nigeria.
Yes.
You know, and the question is, why can't these kinds of initiatives be replicated here in Ghana?
Doc, I've always said that in Nigeria, we called the stakeholders meeting, national or federal stakeholders meeting. Bank of Ghana, Central Bank of Nigeria was there, the commercial banks were there, the insurance was there, customs, income tax, immigration, and then of course the players themselves, the farmers, the input dealers, and the millers were there, and transporters. So we look at the value chain and we acknowledge and recognize and ascertain all the weakness
within the chain.
And then we started addressing those. Because the history was that, the financial history was that they give loans to the farmers, the peasant farmers. Not that they were not giving loans, but then it was always going bad. Commercial banks were complaining. We've given so much, we have to write bad debts. Every year we're writing bad debts from the loans that they have given to the farmers. So then we ask ourselves, what were the issues? And then, surprisingly, the input dealers, between the input dealers and the farmers, we realized that the input dealers were not giving the farmers the right inputs. They will go to China and then do what they call my budget chemicals, my budget fertilizers, and then bring them to the farmers, including seeds. some of the seeds that they were providing them were virtually grains. So right from the word go, the farmer put all this into the soil and nothing good will come out of it. So definitely any loan that you give to the farmer, he was not going to make it. Then between the farmers and the millers, the farmers were planting so many varieties on the same field. So at the end of the day, the paddy comes out, the miller buys it, and then when he goes to mill, it's all broken.
So there was a disconnect in the value
Disconnection.
chain. Have you tried to see how we can replicate that in Ghana?
Yes, that is where I'm coming from. That is where at earlier forum, we have discussed it. And I have said that Bank of Ghana has a role to play. And I'm happy that now they have said it. They are not going to support importation.
Okay.
But beyond that, Doc, they must do something. They must be able to use what we call import substitution fund to support the commercial banks to on-lend to the farmers and then the industry players. In Nigeria, I mean, it's instructive to know that the Anko Borrower came out of such kind of initiative, where the central bank gave money to the commercial bank at 7%, and then they on-lend it to the players at 9%. Okay. So this is exactly what Ghana can do. Okay. So I am expecting that central bank, now that they have said this, they should follow up, have a meeting with the commercial banks and say that this is what we want to do to ensure that our farmers will be able to produce. Because the peasant farmers are ready. The commercial farmers are ready. The millers are ready. I can tell you for certain that we have enough milling machines currently in the system. Okay. What we lack is the paddy rice to feed the mills to come out as white rice for us to eat.
Okay. Mr. Morrison, do you agree with this assessment also, the challenges that is facing us as a country in terms of how we can, rice is the commodity that a lot of people are speaking about, so I'm using that as an example.
Yes, for us as a country, agriculture is not easy. And, more has predicted that on the African continent, by 2065, 3 years time, the whole of Africa will be touching about 10 billion worth of food, annually. And Ghana will be well about 7 billion that will be our goal. If we are not going to invest a lot into agriculture food. The same must also be said about controlling the issues that goes into action. For instance, over 99% of vegetables are all imported. All the vegetables we eat in Ghana are all imported. When it comes to growing material, we do well about 40%. And these are not the hybrids, these are the OP fermented tea. So we need to invest more into. So I mean, you can't import an automobile industry when you don't manufacture the thing. You can't own an agriculture industry when the or the inputs that are critical for the agriculture today are not owned by you. So the indoctrination of our system is still in place, and that is the very reason we need to push more for government to invest and invest in production. It is also the only way we can industrialize this country if we are to we can't continue talking raw material and we expect to be making the critical value addition on the farmer sector. Nobody is global exporting raw material.
So if I asked you as a follow-up question to that, then what are the biggest challenges you see? Maybe the top 2 challenges you see, because we are in a situation where we are all agreeing that we need to eat locally produced food. and yet we are not able to get over the hump to be able to do that. So what are the challenges, or what is the main challenge you see as the issue here? And I'll come to the studio to you also, Mr. Odoom. But Mr. Morrison, is it a mindset?
Well,
I mean,
yes, we do have challenges in terms of local food consumption. First is about the policy that we have as a country. You see, our policies are not aligned to our national interests. Meanwhile, when we have developed some policies which are very good, but government over the past years have not been properly committed to investing in the policy. And that's why we have ended up creating some segregated policies, which are also harmful. So the little funds we have are going into a lot of bigger pieces of policy that are not in tune and holistically developing the agriculture sector. These are some of the things that is also confronting the industry. But as a country, for instance, there are certain things we need to support. You know, the policies that we should have, whether we're talking about our trade policy and make sure trade and industry must be focused. For instance, if you take two things, if you take orange juice, for instance, okay, we need to be very competitive. This is where the research institution comes in. Research institutions like the West African Center for Crop Improvement, University of Ghana, the Crop Research Institute, and all the various 12 agencies or centers of the Bank for Scientific and Industrial Research. They are all capable of giving the agriculture sector what we need to develop. And the only way we can begin to be competitive is to depend on our own scientific and research experts so that we can be more competitive. Our results are more driven by local technology that are able to give us the kind of growth
that we need.
But notwithstanding all these challenges, we also need to focus on how we can train our farmers. I'm also the chairman of the agriculture sector body of reference. And we look at the agriculture sector, over 60% of high skills in this sector we import it. If you go to most of the huge commercial agriculture companies in the country now, 90% are all foreign. And they import a lot of these skills so that their investment can be recouped. If people want to invest in this sector, they'll be asking for the kind of skills that we have as a country. Ghanaians are doing so well in other countries. But why is it that they are not able to do so well when they come up to Ghana?
Yeah. Interrogate that. Yeah.
We need to find a solution to the fact that we do not have a lot of the skills that are needed for us to industrialize the way we want to go about it.
Okay.
So education is key, as well as making sure that competency-driven skills is entrenched in the agriculture sector.
Okay. We're going to take another short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talking Points. Tonight's discussion is on the state of the agricultural sector in Ghana. In the studio with me is with Mr. Abraham Dwuma Odoom. He's a farmer and a former deputy minister for local government. And on the phone with me is Mr. Anthony Morrison, CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness. So, Mr. Odoom, before we left, you were having a discussion with Mr. Morrison about why, in spite of the fact that we know that we need to eat locally, in this new normal we find ourselves, we are still not doing it. And I wanted to quote you, because you made a few statements. You said, the mind is the greatest asset that we have. When the mindset of the people towards their own products changes, then drastic gains will be made.
Yeah. In Nigeria, one of my programs was dubbed Reorganizing and Reorientation. I needed to reorganize the state players for them to have visibility and vibrancy so that engaging with the financial institutions, it will be clear, because that was the expectation of the financial institution. And beyond that, I realized that the mindset is very critical, like you said. So I had to do what I call the reorientation. For instance, like I said, the input dealers. Why do you sell fake inputs to farmers, your own countrymen? So through the reorientation, through the reorganization, the reorientation, we were able to come to a conclusion and a confluence that we have to do the right thing. At least Nigeria, being a Muslim and a Christian country, the same thing Ghana. I mean, we know that the good book tells us you don't have to cheat by way of ways or whatever. So when we came to that conclusion, and then we started getting the right inputs, then productivity started shooting up. And like Mr. Morrison was saying, in our case now, and like I earlier said, COVID came just to awaken us to certain realities that, like we keep on saying, we have to eat on our own food. That means we have to also develop our own way of growing our food. And that is where, Madam Doc, I want to talk about the role of our researchers. I've been talking to a lot of researchers, professors and doctors who are eager. But then, how much do we spend on research? I mean, as a country, if as a country we are serious about agriculture and we want to prioritize agriculture, then I will start by saying that let us pay critical attention to our research. The the Institute of Art and Science Academy, they are there. Men and women who have been on the field. And I have come to realize that when people have been on the field and they are on retirement, that is even where you can get them to do what is best for the country. Because at the end of the day, when that person gets the second opportunity to do something, he wants to do something and write his name on the footprint of time. So I would say that government, fine. Let us not depend on donors to come and help our researchers. For me, it's highly unacceptable. Because when the donors are coming, they are coming with their strengths. Madam, do you know that I've done some little research, and the army web that we have, they don't come from anywhere. They come from the seed of the maize. Can you imagine a larva flying? The moment you plant the maize and it sprouts, the larva comes out of it. So the farmer is compelled to go and buy another chemical. And if he's not able, then the whole farm. So at the end of the day, currently, we are all lamenting on the cost of production as a result of, the heavy cost of inputs. Hitherto, my mom, my dad were using seeds that we ourselves generate. But now, we are dependent on seed from outside. And that is not helping us. So we can talk about cost of production, and if we can talk of the cost of foodstuffs, and if we don't handle this point, then we should forget it. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the cost of production per acre for rice and maize, high, very high. So at the end of the day, the farmer harvests, and if she or he is not fortunate to get the right yield, then he's in trouble. So this issue about this, like Mr. Morrison was saying, let's get our researchers. I tell you, we can do a lot of composting. I'm talking to a group, an Indian group, where we can even use plantain leaves to create compost to feed our soil.
Wow. Mr. Morrison, I don't know if you have any final words that you want to share. Unfortunately, we have less than 5 minutes left. So, as you listen to Mr. Odoom and all that he said, what kind of final words would you want to leave with us?
Well, for me, my senior brother that we have said before, his experience cut across different jurisdictions. He has done it, so it's not that what he said is not doable. We need to listen carefully. But I would say that we need to design our budget and agriculture sector policy based on our national interest. What is Ghana's agriculture national interest? Let's identify it. If our interest first is to be food secured in the country, let's go all out and be food secured. By doing so, we are creating jobs. After we are food secured, let's focus on maybe allowing 30%, 40% on agro export. We cannot, as a country, be using our legal resources into supporting food security at the same time agro export. If what we set out to do is to make sure Ghanaians are able to have access to nutritious, safer, healthy, and very affordable food, let's do it. Let's set up a strategy for the next 2 years. This is what we want to do. We are no more importing poultry. We are no more importing fish. We are no more importing rice. We are no more going to import fruit juice. We are no more going to import tomatoes. Let us do it. When we do that, then we can say that investors, if you want to invest, go and invest and export. Then the country will get foreign exchange. That is the only way we can safeguard the food industry of this country.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Odoom.
In crisis, in situations of emergency, you need all hands on deck. So if the president is making agriculture as a country priority, then I want to believe that we should put in place a mechanism where all hands, all stakeholders who have knowledge, ideas, and I would say starting from the researchers up to even the consumers. Because in Nigeria, when we're doing it, we even included consumers as well as the importers. That we sit down, because after all, it belongs to all of us. If we don't get food, all of us are not going to get food. We shouldn't leave it in the hands of only the technicians. If I say technicians, I mean those are the ministry alone. There are people in the value chain who have valuable information to offer. I mean, the players themselves, the farmers, the peasant farmers. I'm on their platform. And the kind of ideas that they churn out. I'm on the Morris platform, agri-commerce. The kind of ideas. There are some doctors, researchers who are also on the same platform coming out with wonderful ideas. We need to harness all these ideas so that we'll be able to solve this problem. Because, you see, we need, as it's a crisis now, we need all hands to be on deck so that we'll be able to resolve it. If we go to China, the way they came this far, if you listen to them, they consciously, they will take every year, say 50 students to Harvard, to Oxford, that kind of thing. And those people, you go and you definitely come back.
Bring
go,
back what you've learned.
Yes. This is the kind of thing that we need to do. We shouldn't wish it. We should imagine, design, execute, and then we'll create. Because I have a strong belief that we have men and women who are capable. Like our great president said, Africa is capable of Yes. And Ghana, we are capable.
Yes.
Yes, because after all, we have 60%, Africa have 60% of land. Why should we import food?
Well, your 4 words: imagine, devise, execute, and create.
Yes.
On that note, I want to thank all of you for joining us for tonight's talking point, and a very special thank you to my in-studio guest, Mr. Abraham Dwuma Odoom, a farmer, a former deputy minister, a former MP, and
agribusiness consultant.
And agribusiness consultant. And on the phone, we have Mr. Anthony Morrison, the CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. I'm Dr. Anim Wright, and this has been Talking Point. A special thank you to our sponsors, ATL and Rowena Creations. Thank you for sharing your Sunday with us. As always, please be and take care. Till next week.